Welcome to PrimeAlpha's interview series, insights from industry practitioners discussing their journey and their discoveries. Hello, my name is Amanda Jogia, the CEO of PrimeAlpha, an online ecosystem bringing together alternative opportunities and their investors. I would like to introduce Monica Jalife, who is a principal at the Private Client Group at Pinnacle Associates, where she leads the group's investment committee. She's a member of the New York Society of Security Analysts, CFA Institute, and the Financial Planning Association of New York. In addition to her role at Pinnacle, Monica is a principal and wealth advisor at Withum Wealth Management. As an active member in her community, Monica conducts financial literacy courses in English and Spanish for women victims of domestic violence and for the Hispanic community. She has also participated in half marathons to raise funds for children with terminal diseases and volunteers her time at summer camps for terminally ill children. Welcome, Monica. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Great to be here. I'm excited to be here.
Let's start and tell us about your career journey.
Well, my career journey has a little bit of luck. It has a lot of hard work, a lot of perseverance. It got me here. I moved about 20 years ago from Mexico to New York, and I was determined that I was going to stay in New York. And I had an industrial engineering degree, and as you might know, there's not a lot of engineers in New York City, so that didn't stop me. I kept looking, and I ended up with an interview at this wonderful company, which is called Pinnacle Associates, which, by the way, I'm still there 20 years after, and they took a chance. They took a chance with me because I had very little finance background. I did have some, but very little. And I started really from the bottom and learning. And it's been such a great journey. It's been a lot of learning. It has been a lot of learning also from not only academically, but from the wonderful people that I've been working with over the years. And now I manage a large book of business for a group, the Private Client Group, and never settle and always keep learning and keep evolving.
What are some of the lessons learned? I mean, obviously there's tons of evolution in the last 20 years, but maybe you could highlight some interesting ones.
I would think the highlights are do not give up, no matter how things might be looking a little bit harder. And I always think back to this story, but in the beginning, I was interviewing so much and it was hard because I'm coming from a different country. And I was saying, okay, well, I am going to just at the end of these periods, call it in a few months, I'm going to go back if nothing happens. And I did took a course at NYU. And during those months, which I had almost decided that I was going back, is when I got this interview with Pinnacle. And that's when I started. And that was 20 years ago. So do not give up. Things might look tough at times, but there's always a way.
That's amazing. I mean, 20 years ago was a different world. It was so much harder for women. And then to come into the business from maybe not studying finance or just kind of not the standard step 1, step 2, step 3 is a huge feat.
Absolutely. And there was, not only that, you've definitely seen a lot more participation from women over the last 20 years, which is fantastic. I'm a big advocate of that, as I know you are, Amanda. But not only that, there was also like all of these sites, Job or Indeed or all of those, they were not that developed. And I just remember going through the New York Times job section every Sunday, little box by little box, and sending like tons of resumes. And it was very different than how things look now. But again, so when people see the value and the opportunities, it's just hard work. It was a lot more hard work, I think, than it would be now because the internet helps you quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, the visibility, right? You see everything. Everyone sees you.
Exactly. But, on the women, I think in this firm, there is good participation from women. But yeah, it is just that interview you. And if they give you that opportunity, that's important.
It's like intuitively you knew not to give up. But if you could
my DNA.
Yeah, some people are just fighters, right? But if you could go back and give yourself advice, what would that advice be?
Well, I would say realize your value and don't let doubt come in. Because, in finance, there's this belief, right, that the more years that you have experience, the better you are. But don't let that doubt come in because you realize your value. And it took me some time to realize that value. So if I gave my own self a piece of advice, would be that, because it's there. It's just sometimes we, as our own selves, are harder than anyone else on ourselves. So that would be my own advice to myself.
We do a lot of mentoring. I do a lot of mentoring for young women. Like today, I had a call with a college graduate, and I said, one thing you have to do is not be scared. Don't doubt yourself. The way she talked was always angled at doubt. And I was like, you're smart. You're smarter than most people.
And I think that's amazing that you're mentoring women and getting them to really kind of take these steps. But that's something that if you think sometimes about men, like do something, say something. But, I think women, just because the way we're made, but that's exactly, once you realize, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, they're going to tell me no.
Yeah, that's it.
So I think that's really powerful advice for us as women. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I feel your passion. So what are you passionate about? What makes you happy?
Well, my family makes me happy. I love my family. Even from growing up, family is always very important. But there's a few other things. I mean, travel is my great passion. Travel and going to different places and learning and eating the food and immersing yourself in those cultures. It's just something that gives me such satisfaction, gives me a lot of learning. It helps me stay grounded to how positive, how thankful I am for what I've done and where I am. So I think that's always something that is not only going to help with my career, but it also makes me so happy. And I get that urge to go on a trip again, and it's happening. So that's really something that makes me very happy. And a third thing that really makes me happy and gives me a lot of personal satisfaction is mentoring and helping those that are not as fortunate. Especially, I love to get involved with the Hispanic community and love when I'm doing kind of sessions in Spanish. And I feel women or anyone in general opening up because they feel that the trust and that those barriers are not there. So that's also a big element of happiness for me. And that in my life, it can take different shapes. I was teaching people to read and write in Mexico many years when I was still in college. Here I help with financial planning for women, either that are a victim of domestic violence or women that are going either themselves or one of their family members through cancer. And I partner with a few different organizations, which are really also wonderful because they are the ones that are helping connect the different groups of people. So that's also really rewarding in terms of what I like to do.
It's so interesting because you sit on the investment committee of a big firm and you have this wonderful knowledge that then you could also apply and help people who really need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the planning, I mean, sometimes it's really tough because you see, what they're going through and their personal situation. And, I mean, just sickness and accidents, things like that can really, throw everything you thought you had in place into a different direction. So they really need the help. And when you go through these engagements, they're very thankful, and no amount of money or anything could really compare to something like that when you're helping someone that really needs it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it means more to them than anyone else.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your 20-year journey at Pinnacle and the things that you've seen, the evolution of the things that you've looked at from an investment perspective. What are some of the things you're looking at now, or where do you see opportunity or value?
Yeah, we have been very fortunate in terms of market. And we've had, other than a few blips here and there, over 12 years of really, really good markets. And that's, obviously, it's been great. We did go through 08, 09, which was also really difficult to go through. And I remember those days like yesterday. I would say in general, because of these really good returns that we've had over time, the markets generally are on the fuller side of valuations. And I think it's very important as investors to do our homework and to understand where we're going, because I think the market as a whole could be just on the fuller side of valuations, but there's still pockets of opportunity. Think places, think areas of the market that came to the party a little bit later, right? To the international market. Emerging, you definitely have to do your homework there. There's pockets of opportunity as well. And even in the US, I mean, companies that are more tied to the economy, I mean, there's been this back and forth of the reopening stocks or the stay-at-home stocks. And you're starting to see the economy really come back and still have some easy money out there. But, some of these names that are more tied to the economy, more cyclical, can start to do better. So I would think that there's opportunities. There's always opportunities in the market. What's important really is to stay to your investment philosophy. Two is to understand the companies and the areas and to do your homework. And lastly, I think also it's very important, and that's as advisors, we are also risk managers. And one of the greatest added values that we can bring to our clients is putting on that hat of risk managers, because it is not about getting the home run. It's about getting the singles and doubles.
Did you have a mentor in your career?
Yes. Here's the story. I did. And I'm very appreciative of all the practical knowledge and the practical, call it tidbits, that I've gotten from him. And we still work together. His name's Jim Ferrari, and he started our group. We've been working together, obviously, these 20 years, but it's super important to have a mentor. And I think it's important for us, as we also grow in our careers, to pay that back with women or students or someone that's starting their career, because you can go to school, you can have all the schooling you want, and you can have designations and all of these, but having a mentor that is going to give you life lessons and it's going to give you some tough love and you need it, it's just going to shape that other side that you're not going to get from opening a book or taking a test. Yeah, absolutely. I've had a mentor, and it really has made a difference.
I could tell. I just knew it. I was like, I feel like she had this fantastic person in your life that changed it. Like, it was just a significant pivot. He made all the difference.
And, just to share in just a minute, but his mind is like going like 1,000 miles an hour. And he's super, super bright, of course, and he's super successful. But it's also like taking the time to just say, okay, here's how you do it, especially when you're starting, right? Sometimes we're afraid to ask. And that's another advice that I would give anyone is don't be afraid to ask. It's just a question. But you also need that side of almost being patient and understanding people are in a different stage than you are. So he's been great.
That's so great. For women, there's all those studies about how women, it's harder for them to find mentors. So they're like, how do you get one? How do you get one?
And I think, even if it's like through where you go to school or, different networks, but even if it's not through your place of employment, I was very fortunate that it was through, where I was working. So it was easy. It was right there. There's organizations, there's groups, that's networks, like go to your college, go to your, counselor, look for that actively, because there is a lot of value in that as well.
In terms of the investment side, so I'm kind of flipping back, but in terms of the investment side, what are some of the things that get you excited right now?
Well, there's some good innovation happening everywhere. And I think also there is a lot of more awareness into what we're doing as a company, thinking companies, what they're doing to really make this world a different one, right? And that means, are you under the framework to keep your warming at below 2 degrees? What are you doing for your employees? How are you treating your employees? What are you doing for your communities? How do you help people? So I think that gets me excited because, this is not new. This is not something that's just happening overnight. It's been so long. At Pinnacle, we've been working with social responsible accounts for 20 years, but it's been an evolution. And now there's no turning back. These companies, even the offenders, the bad players, you cannot ignore what's happening. And that's exciting. You can get a lot of really great companies that are doing so many good things. And the theory, I firmly believe this, is that these are the companies that will also give you a greater return. They give you return over time because they're doing it right doesn't mean giving up return. So I think that's exciting. And obviously, I mean, it's exciting because it's important. It's exciting because they don't have like companies. There's no turning back. We're at that turning point, and everyone needs to do like their little fair share. And in companies, and us as investors and us stakeholders need to also keep thinking about, well, do I want to have this company that is really not contributing and actually making things worse? Or do I focus on the ones that have the right great practices that I want to see happen more and more?
One of the firms that we have on our platform, they do mid-cap Europe and definitely has an ESG tilt to it. And what I've learned is those companies that can focus on ESG can focus on it because they're better operationally, which means they're better companies overall and more responsible. And I was like, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, it is like you said, it's like a virtuous cycle because you are better operational because you have more disclosure, you have more controls, you have a defined strategy and a vision, and it goes into a lot of how you're doing business and how you're getting your profits and so on. So yeah, absolutely makes sense.
So great. So I want to ask you, what is your superpower and why?
Well, I'm going to say I have two. One is really that do not give up mentality and attitude, and really finding the positive in situations that might not even look as positive, but just always trying to keep that positive. I think that's really helped me so much throughout my life and my career. Another superpower that I would call is my ability to have empathy with people and meet them where they are and not trying to have them meet me where I am. I like to say I have two superpowers.
The fact that you can help people at all levels of their finances and also explain it to people who might be more sophisticated and less sophisticated really says that you're coming to them. And
I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but when I was a little girl, I always said I wanted to be a teacher. And even though I'm not necessarily a teacher per se in a classroom, I still feel like a teacher in many of my conversations with my clients, because you're right. I can talk in terms in the financial world, but also I can explain the same thing in a way that is just kind of more plain English to my clients. And I enjoy that as well.
That was my dream too, to be a teacher. I'm serious. I always wanted to be a teacher. And I think that's why I do the mentoring. But then I realized that teachers don't get paid enough and they should get paid more.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny that we have the same thing.
And you are teaching. You're teaching them life, right? Life advice and life, with the mentoring and the coaching.
I hope so. I hope we bring a little additiveness to the world. Monica, thank you so much. I really appreciate having you here and telling us your story.
Thanks, Amanda. It's been great.
Thank you for listening to PrimeAlpha's Visionaries and Innovators podcast. As always, you can head over to PrimeAlpha.com to sign up to our email list, as well as check out our other podcasts. See you next time.